Welcome to Healing Powers TV. I'm your host, Laura Powers, and I'm pleased today to have Darylle Dennis with us.
Hello.
She is president of 7 Steps Inc., which is a training company. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. I appreciate being here and talking with all of you today, so thank you for being here.
And I asked Darylle to be on the show to talk about the Mayan calendar, because it's something that is definitely getting a lot of attention these days, and I think could help everyone at home have a better understanding of what it is and what it means for us, how it can help us in our lives. So I wonder if you could just talk about what the Mayan calendar is, because I think there's a lot of confusion about that.
There actually is a lot of confusion about that, which is a really great question, because the Mayan calendar is being interpreted as what we know as calendars here on Earth, which is tracking time. You know, January, February, March, April, and so forth. But in reality, according to Dr. Carl Kalleman's work, who is a Swedish microbiologist who came across the Mayan calendar in, I think it was 1979. And so he studied it for 8 years, and lo and behold, what he found out, the patterns that exist in the Mayan calendar happen to do with the evolution of consciousness, which is not the same thing as tracking time. And consciousness is impacting all the universe, not just planet Earth as well. So it's, Dr. Kalleman is talking about the stages of consciousness that are evolving and what is taking place in the process of doing so. And we're actually in the final stage.
Wow. So
Yeah.
in terms of the discovery, you mentioned it was discovered in 1979. What was that discovery? What was it that was found that led to this sort of revolutionary idea?
A really, really big rock. It was 12 feet high and 7 feet wide and 5 feet thick, and it had glyphs on it. That was one aspect of the calendar, and those glyphs were interpreted similar to the Egyptian glyphs, hieroglyphics, and so that those symbols are interpreted in terms of what Kalleman then uncovered is being communicated to us at this time.
Okay, so it was symbols that were interpreted, and
Yes.
and I think this is a fascinating idea that a calendar can represent something that's not just time, because
Yes.
we're so used to this Gregorian calendar,
Right.
which just measures days and weeks. And so what is the difference with this calendar? How does it measure consciousness?
So remember when we were kids and we learned about the world was created, God created the world in 7 days and 6 nights.
Mm-hmm.
The part that I found fascinating about that is that the Mayan calendar addresses that as well. That the Mayan calendar has 9 levels of consciousness. Each level is broken into 13 segments of time, which is 7 days and 6 nights. The daytime represents something new is being introduced to consciousness. The nighttime indicates when we're able to assimilate it and then apply it. And then the second day is an expansion of that consciousness that was recently introduced, and the night is the same thing. It's assimilating it so inside to try to understand, what does this mean, how does this fit to me, how does this impact my day, my world, my experience. And then once we sort that out, then we assimilate it that way internally, and then we begin to apply it. And that each day and each night is a certain segment of time that we have to accomplish that. So that's how that works.
Okay, so we learn something, and then the night time is when we process it, sort of absorb it, really get it on a very deep level.
Correct.
And so what are those lengths of time in terms of the stages?
Okay, so so for the purpose of the time frame that we have available today, we'll start with the first one. So the first segment of time was 64 billion years. So each day, each night is 1.26 billion years. And so when you have 1.26 billion years for something new to be introduced to consciousness, you have 1.26 billion years to sort of sort out what does that mean. And so then the nighttime is the 1.26 billion years as well. So now let's jump forward to the time frame that most of us were born in, which is called the power consciousness cycle. And so the power consciousness cycle had to do with, the industrial age revolution. So that was acquiring materials and things, and who acquired a lot of materials had some power. So who had more money and more cars and more boats and houses and all that had power. So that was a consciousness cycle of power. And in that time period, each day and each night was 19.4 years long. So we had a substantial amount of time to sort of sort things out. The next cycle that we've just exited was called the ethics consciousness cycle, and that cycle started January 5, 1999. What do you think was happening January 5, 1999? Think about it.
I don't know. I remember where I was. I was at university, but I can't remember exactly what was going on.
Okay, so the first day of ethics consciousness cycle was the beginning of 1999. What was the entire world putting their attention on? Entire world.
Oh, Y2K.
Y2K. So Y2K was the beginning of us starting to regain our own power, because Y2K is where we were saying, wow, we put all these boys in charge of us, all these people in charge of us and our systems and everything, and now all those systems are going down. So with that happening, we won't have money, we won't have gasoline, we won't have food distribution, we better start stockpiling, and all of that was the beginning of the ethics consciousness cycle. So if we're going to be in charge of ourselves, then what we need is to start opening up our heart. And in opening up our heart to help us navigate what is correct for each situation. And that was the beginning of consciousness, of the ethics consciousness cycle, was getting in touch with what is truth for us and what is the way that I want to build and create my life, was the beginning of that consciousness cycle.
Okay, and so what consciousness cycle are we in now?
Oh, well, this is the really, really, really fast one, because the ethics consciousness cycle, so remember we were born in the 19.4 years per day and per night, that cycle? Well, ethics consciousness cycle was 360 days. So that means something new is introduced to consciousness. We had 360 days to sort it out. One of the things that we know in that cycle was the introduction of law of attraction. So law of attraction basically says everything in the universe is energy, and how energy interacts with itself is in a likeness attracts manner. Second thing about energy is that thought is energy creating a match, looking for a match for itself. So in the ethics consciousness cycle, it was the first time that we actually started to process, gee, I'm actually in charge of my reality. I'm actually creating my own reality. That's a new idea. So we had 360 days to sort that out. We also had, the nighttime is the sort of assimilation of that idea and then applying it. So we had 360 days to apply that. So then the second day, let's say, then we have something new that they said, well, guess what else is involved? How you feel. And so the Heart Math Institute is showing that the energy signal being emitted from us, that is how you feel, is 5,000 times stronger a signal than what we're thinking about. Therefore, it becomes the dominant aspect of what creates reality, or what creates our experience. So in the ethics consciousness cycle, we have 360 days to go, I didn't know that. So how you feel is 5,000 times stronger, so I have to sort out how I feel. I didn't know that, so we have 360 days to process that. And then 360 to then begin to apply it, and so forth. Each day and each night, so the day is a new introduction to consciousness and an expansion of it. Each night is the assimilation and the application of it. So now, here we are in the final cycle of consciousness, which started February 10th, 2011.
Okay.
Each day and each night, ready? 19.4 days.
Wow.
So something new is introduced to consciousness. So we have 19 days to sort out what does that mean for my experience.
So it goes from, what was it, 64 point something billion in
Yes.
a day to
1.26 billion years for a day.
Yeah, to now
19 days.
19 days. So that I hope explains for a lot of people, I think, why we feel like time is moving faster.
Right, right. And in essence, time actually is a neutral zone. It's not
Right.
moving faster. It's just neutral. But more is being condensed in the same time frame. So there's another aspect of this that's really important for today's experience, which is the mind has a capacity. It's a limitation. And the limitation is that the mind's capacity can see 24 frames a second. It can actually process 24 frames a second.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you have experiences that are accelerating faster than 24 frames a second, it would be like a strobe light blinking off and on 24 frames a second. You can tell, you can distinguish between the segments of the frame, of the blinking. However, if it goes faster than that, it's a steady stream of light.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what that means is that our brain's capacity to assess situations and circumstances that appear so we can navigate through our day is now diminishing in terms of its effectiveness. But we have another aspect that has no speed limit and is always right. What do you think that is?
I don't know. What is it?
What do you think that is? It's intuition. So intuition is something that's coming from your heart, which is why it was so essential in the evolutionary process to get our ethics in place. Because ethics is about developing our wisdom from our heart. Intuition comes from that same place. So now this is the final cycle of this. And so our intuition is basically the tool that we have available to us to navigate through these circumstances that are very fast. An example would be like 9/11. You know, 9/11 is like, you know, somebody gets an intuition to not go to work that day. Okay, that saved those people's lives that had that. There were other people that went in the building and the boss said, you have stuff to sell, so you better go back up in the office. Some went because the boss said, some said, I'm going home. You see, that intuition is what we're going to be navigating. As things are getting faster and faster and faster, we must activate our intuition.
Oh, I see. So because our brain can only process so quickly,
Right.
that intuition can be used at any speed, I would imagine.
No matter how fast things are going, your intuition. So
it's always going to work.
Yes, exactly.
And it's so interesting because it's true that there's a lot more discussion about intuition lately.
Yes.
Compared to the age of power, for example.
Right.
When there wasn't a lot of discussion.
That was about speed and profit.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so intuition, which is now in the consciousness co-creation cycle, is all about alignment.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So this final cycle is called conscious co-creation. So what does that mean? Conscious co with whom or with what? So first of all, there's the frequency that is permeating the universe is a divine intention. And the divine intention, divine is coming from all loving and all compassion and all creation, creating something wonderful with each other and for each other. And so also the divine intention piece has to do with us shifting from our ego, which is good, bad, right, wrong dynamics, and dropping that as an identity to intending to align with divine intention. When that happens, then we let go of outcomes, because divine's outcome, as from a much broader perspective, can see that how this is unfolded this way is appropriate for the highest and best good of all. And from that a place, I trust that. And that's the consciousness that we're stepping into. Then we consciously co-create with each other wonderfulness for humanity that's all gift and all grace and all loving. And that's where we're heading, and it's happening very quickly.
And, sorry, when is that final stage? When does that one
So
start?
according to Dr. Kalaman, that stage ends, and this is in the Mayan calendar. This is up for interpretation. Other people have different ideas about this, and it's all so fast, doesn't matter. You know, but Dr. Kalaman said the calendar actually completes its cycle October 28th, 2011.
So this year, which is different than what a lot of people hear, which is the big 2012 idea.
Right.
So we are largely, or quickly approaching when we'll reach that final stage of consciousness, I guess you would say?
So it's a final evolution of consciousness in the sense where once we reach the consciousness level of harmony, of alignment, our intention is to align with divine intention. When that happens, when we're there, then what we're able to create is beyond imagination or beyond comprehension. Now, a way to activate all of this, very simply put, as we finish, this happens so fast, this all raced by so fast, is that when we intend to be of value to anyone who crosses our path, when that becomes your intent for each day, you activate your intuition, you activate your own divine identity that links with or connects with divine intention that is permeating everything in our experience today. It's amazing, and it's so simple.
I love it, and this idea of during the age of power,
Yes.
things that were harder. It's like you have to work and strive,
Right.
and this idea that in this last stage that things just happen very easily
Yes.
and fall into place,
Yes.
and it's very empowering, which
Yes.
I love.
Absolutely, yeah. And see, so when you have a slower frequency, things are denser.
Yeah.
So you have more density. And now things are very light and very fast. That's why a lot of people are getting rid of stuff. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, that's true.
They're getting there, no more stuff, not so much stuff, not so many houses and so forth. And whatever that is, it's just lighter. Light as a feather, I call it, from my experience. I'm on a light as a feather campaign. Yeah.
That's a lovely way to put it. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you'd like to add for the audience before we wrap up for today?
Finally put, Albert Einstein said the only true source of knowledge is experience. And so get up in the morning, and the first thing you begin to launch is, I intend to be of value to anyone who crosses my path. If you say that in a mantra-like manner, you start activating your own divinity, and then circumstances and events arise where you actually are able to be of value. Your intuition kicks in so that you can actually bring something that you hadn't dreamed possible that then is of value, and the highest and most benevolent outcome will just unfold before your very eyes in ways that are miraculous. And our whole experience is, we're heading for 1,000 years or more of the golden age of enlightenment, and we get to be here now to usher this in, and we're also fortunate to be here at this time, and I'm so grateful to be here with you, and thank you so much.
Thank you,
Darylle.
Darylle.
Great. Thank you. Yeah.
And if people want to find out more information about you, what you do, how can they do that?
Thank you. www.7stepsinc.com. Lots of information on the Mayan calendar and some other work there too. So,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thanks for watching, and if you want additional information on the TV show, podcasts, and more, you can go to www.healingpowers.net. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.